June 4th, 1942, 7:20 a.m., Pacific Ocean, northeast of Midway Atoll. The deck of the Japanese aircraft carrier Akagi vibrates under the roar of engines. Bombers are being refueled. Torpedoes are being swapped for high-explosive bombs. Sailors rush across steel decks slick with aviation fuel. Above them, the sky is wide and deceptively calm. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto believes he is about to crush what remains of the United States Navy. 6 months earlier, Japan stunned the world at Pearl Harbor. Battleships burned. The Pacific Fleet lay crippled. American morale was shaken. But one critical element survived: the aircraft carriers. And now, Yamamoto intends to finish the job by luring them into a trap near a tiny remote outpost called Midway. The Japanese plan is brilliant in theory. Strike Midway, force the Americans to respond, destroy their carriers when they appear. Japan sends 4 of its most powerful carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryū. These are veterans of Pearl Harbor. Their pilots are experienced. Their confidence is high. Opposing them are 3 American carriers: Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown. But what Yamamoto does not know is this: the Americans are waiting. In a dimly lit room in Pearl Harbor weeks earlier, U.S. Navy cryptanalysts had broken parts of Japan's naval code. They knew an attack was coming. They suspected the target was AF. To confirm it, they sent a false radio message from Midway claiming a water shortage. Shortly afterward, Japanese communications reported that AF is short on water. Midway was the target. Admiral Chester Nimitz makes a calculated decision. Instead of retreating or reinforcing Hawaii, he sends his carriers forward to ambush the ambushers. Now, on the morning of June 4th, both sides are searching for each other across hundreds of miles of open ocean. At 7:28 a.m., a Japanese scout plane finally spots American ships. But the message is delayed. Confusion follows. The Japanese commander, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, faces a terrible dilemma. His first wave has already struck Midway. Reports indicate the island is not fully neutralized. A second strike may be necessary. But if American carriers are nearby, his aircraft must be armed with torpedoes, not bombs. So Nagumo hesitates. He orders bombs removed, torpedoes prepared. Then another report suggests American ships may not include carriers. Uncertainty spreads. He reverses the order. Bombs are brought back, torpedoes rolled away again. On crowded hangar decks below, aircraft are being refueled and rearmed in tight formation. Fuel hoses snake across steel floors. Bombs lie stacked beside planes. It is controlled chaos, but it is also dangerous. At 9:17 a.m., American torpedo bombers arrive. They come in low, slow, and exposed. Squadrons from Hornet, Enterprise, and Yorktown attack without fighter cover. Japanese Zero fighters tear into them mercilessly. Anti-aircraft fire shreds wings and fuselages. One by one, American planes fall into the sea. Of the 41 torpedo planes launched, only a handful survive. None score a hit. It looks like a disaster. But those brave, doomed attacks accomplish something critical. They drag Japanese fighters down to sea level. The skies above are suddenly empty. At 10:20 a.m., 3 American dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown appear almost by accident over the Japanese fleet. Their pilots had been searching blindly, nearly out of fuel. Then, by pure chance, they spot the wake of a lone Japanese destroyer racing to rejoin the fleet. They follow it, and what they find below changes history. 4 Japanese carriers, decks crowded with aircraft, fuel lines exposed, bombs stacked and unsecured. For just a few minutes, the Japanese fleet is defenseless from above. Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey leads the attack. He doesn't hesitate. Attack! Dive bombers roll over, noses pointing straight down toward the carriers. Sirens scream as they descend at near vertical angles. Pilots feel gravity crush their bodies as they aim carefully through narrow sights. On Kaga, bombs strike first. Explosions rip across the deck. Fuel ignites instantly. Seconds later, Akagi is hit. One bomb detonates near the hangar deck. It is enough. Fire spreads uncontrollably. Then Soryu is struck. Flames consume the carrier within minutes. In less than 5 minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 frontline carriers are mortally wounded. The ocean erupts in smoke and fire. Japanese sailors scramble desperately to fight the infernos, but aviation fuel burns too hot. Explosions chain through hangars. Ammunition cooks off. Aircraft melt into twisted metal. The pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy is dying. Only Hiryū remains operational. Within hours, she launches counterattacks that cripple the American carrier Yorktown. But by late afternoon, American dive bombers find Hiryū as well. She too is set ablaze. By nightfall, all 4 Japanese carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor are sinking or doomed. Japan loses over 300 aircraft. More importantly, it loses its most experienced naval aviators, pilots who cannot be replaced quickly. The Pacific balance of power shifts in a single morning. What began as a Japanese trap has become a catastrophic reversal. And it all turns on hesitation, intelligence, timing, and 5 minutes of clear sky. But the battle is not over, because victory at Midway is not guaranteed until the last threat disappears. Smoke rolls across the Pacific as the burning carriers drift helplessly in the water. The flames on Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu rage out of control. Damage control crews fight desperately, but aviation fuel has turned the hangar decks into furnaces. Ammunition detonates in violent bursts, tearing through steel bulkheads. What had been the most powerful carrier strike force in the world just hours earlier is now collapsing into chaos. On the bridge of the flagship Akagi, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo stands in stunned silence. His operational plan, precise, confident, methodical, has disintegrated in minutes. The Japanese Navy had entered the war with a doctrine of aggressive offense and calculated dominance. Pearl Harbor had proven that doctrine unstoppable. But now, faced with disaster, the illusion of invincibility is shattered. Only one carrier remains, Hiryū. Its commander, Captain Tomeo Kaku, reacts immediately. While the other carriers burn, Hiryū launches 2 waves of aircraft. The first strikes the American carrier Yorktown. Dive bombers punch through its deck, leaving it burning and listing. A second wave of torpedo planes follows, scoring additional hits. For a moment, Japanese morale surges. Perhaps the battle can still be salvaged. American crews fight to save Yorktown with extraordinary determination. Damage control teams patch ruptured hull sections, restore temporary power, and extinguish fires. Within an hour, smoke clears, and the carrier appears operational again. Japanese reconnaissance misidentifies it as a second carrier entirely, believing they have crippled 2 different ships instead of the same one twice. This confusion proves fatal. By mid-afternoon, American scout planes locate Hiryū. Once again, dive bombers are launched. This time, they descend without hesitation. Bombs slam into the flight deck. Explosions erupt. Fires spread rapidly across the carrier. Within hours, Hiryū is mortally wounded. 4 Japanese fleet carriers, gone in a single day. In Tokyo, news of the disaster spreads slowly and carefully. At first, reports are vague. Communications are fragmented. But Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, commanding the broader operation from aboard the battleship Yamato, quickly realizes the magnitude of the catastrophe. His ambitious plan to destroy the American carriers has instead cost Japan the core of its naval air power. The losses are not just steel and machinery. They are men. Japan's carrier aviation had been built over years. Its pilots were elite, highly trained, combat-experienced veterans from China and Pearl Harbor. Many had flown dozens of missions. Their replacement pipeline was slow and limited. Training new carrier pilots to that level would take years Japan did not have. The United States, by contrast, possesses enormous industrial capacity and a rapidly expanding pilot training system. Shipyards in California and Virginia are already producing new carriers at astonishing speed. Airfields across America are training thousands of young pilots every month. Midway is not merely a tactical defeat for Japan. It is a strategic turning point. The Imperial Japanese Navy will never again field a carrier strike force of that quality and experience. The balance of initiative shifts permanently to the United States. But this outcome was not inevitable. If the Japanese scout plane had reported earlier, if Nagumo had committed fully to torpedoes instead of rearming repeatedly, if American torpedo bombers had not drawn fighters downward, if dive bombers had arrived minutes later, history could have unfolded very differently. Had Japan destroyed the American carriers at Midway, the Pacific might have opened to further Japanese expansion. Hawaii could have faced direct threat. Australia might have been isolated. American morale, already fragile after Pearl Harbor, could have suffered a devastating blow. Instead, the momentum shifts. In the months that follow, the United States launches a counteroffensive at Guadalcanal. Brutal island battles begin. The long grind of the Pacific War takes shape. Japan, once advancing across the ocean with relentless speed, now fights defensively. Midway proves something essential about war. Intelligence matters. Timing matters. Leadership under pressure matters. But perhaps most importantly, courage matters. The American torpedo bomber pilots who attacked first on June 4th knew their chances of survival were slim. They flew slow aircraft against overwhelming defenses. Many were shot down before releasing their weapons. Almost none survived. Yet their sacrifice cleared the sky for the dive bombers who followed. 5 minutes of opportunity, 5 minutes of open sky, 5 minutes that saved the Pacific. By the end of June 4th, the ocean is littered with debris and oil slicks. Survivors cling to rafts. Rescue ships search through darkness. The scale of what has happened is still sinking in. For Japan, Midway marks the beginning of irreversible decline. For the United States, it marks the first major offensive victory of the Pacific War. And for history, it becomes proof that even dominant powers can fall when overconfidence meets preparation. The Battle of Midway did not end the war, but it ensured how the war would end. If you found this story powerful, continue exploring the turning points that shaped the modern world. Because sometimes, history does not change over years or months. Sometimes, it changes in 5 minutes.